My name is Elizabeth Einhaus, and I served as the project manager on this Crystal City construction project. The idea for this project was to have a space that was in the DC metropolitan area where most of our key stakeholders are located. So we wanted to make sure that this facility told the story of Textron Systems' past, as well as demonstrates how we're moving into the future.
The first thing that went through my mind when we heard that Textron Systems wanted to work with us was pride in the fact that they had reached out to us after seeing the Bell Advanced Vertical Lift Center that we designed on the same floor of the same building.
It's kind of like, cool, we saw what you guys did, let's do it better, faster, more on schedule, more on budget.
I will be honest, the first time I walked into this space, having never seen it before, I was horrified. It was an amalgamation of many different styles that really did not seem to serve one purpose.
HKS completes a visioning session with clients before we ever start design. The goal there is to really make sure that we understand our clients' missions and values.
We went through a full day event with HKS so that they could understand the story we wanted to tell.
The key elements that the client asked us to draw inspiration from was their domains.
It spans across 7 domains like air, land, and sea.
We wanted to incorporate Textron's core values, and 2 of those were we don't do can't and pushing past possible. That really talked about their grit and their determination, as well as being forward thinking. The schedule for the project was really truncated. We had very little time to do planning, schematic design, and design development, so we went through one very short design development process where we came up with an initial concept based on the visioning that we did with the client, and we were able to get really quick buy-in of the conceptual ideas and just ran with it.
At that point, when they were on board with the concept, that's kind of when we went, okay, well, who can do this?
So we've had a couple really successful projects with Arktura. We delivered a project called New Star out in Reston, Virginia.
Huge project, 3 stories, 100,000 square feet. It's not oftentimes where the ceiling is kind of outshining everything else. So in this product, it was what outshone everything else. This is a partner we worked with and who we trust.
In a matter of weeks, we had a 3D model of this facility, and that design is what you see here today. I want to highlight the ceiling, of course. You really can't walk by without stopping and staring. We love to think of it as a topographic map.
Clouds in the sky.
Or waves in the sea, all things that tell the story of Textron Systems domains that we support.
In this specific instance, they were looking for this topography to mimic the Sahara Desert.
It actually has noise, smaller ridges that were designed to create the rippling effect that you would see with the wind brushing across desert sand.
We wanted to make sure that when you walked in, you felt the undulating movement of the topography, and it really drew you into the space and turned the corner.
Undulation, the wave-like patterns that you'll see throughout the ceiling baffles. I had never heard the word before I started this project.
We wanted to have that space be as open, as flexible as possible, but that comes with acoustical concerns with the concrete floor, metal panels, glass.
We had demoed the whole thing, and when you walked into the facility, all you could hear was echoes, and we knew we had to have some kind of solution that was aesthetically beautiful, but also functional.
We wanted something that was made from PET. It felt like a natural decision to go with a softer ceiling. Of course, went to Arktura. They're kind of the leaders in aesthetically pleasing, noise-reducing ceilings.
We initially reached out to Arktura for the ceiling baffles because we knew they could do the custom wave patterns that we wanted.
We were brought in for some ceiling scope. That's our Atmosphera system, something that we're super comfortable with.
The ceiling we have done hundreds of times. We were able to get the ceiling approved in shop drawings, and we used heat mapping to articulate the depths of the fins. So for the architect, they knew what they were getting.
The thing that Arktura was really able to assist us on was not just creating and designing it, but when we ran into probably our hardest constraint, which was ceiling height.
They knew that they had a certain depth to work with within the plenum.
Typically, deeper is better because you're going to have more room for the topography to be able to move and flow.
Balancing the aesthetics with the functional requirements was an insane balancing act. We had to have emergency lighting. We had to have heating and cooling. How can we meet lighting codes? How can we recircuit the lights? How can we really push past these boundaries? We would bring in Arktura and said, okay, can you manipulate the topography to kind of hide these elements that we can't push anymore?
That's one of the beautiful things about Atmosphera is you can change the depth in section, you can change it in plan. We extruded the baffle systems to work with a very minimal depth in the ceiling.
Just from a manufacturing and installation requirement, we typically don't want to have fins less than 5 inches.
We had to provide a certain amount of height for the mechanical systems, and our cove is basically eating into it. Luckily, Arktura came back and said, yeah, you know what, we were originally planning to cut off just like 1 inch to 2 inches and kind of create this topographical pattern. When we get to the edge, we can really thin that out and get you guys right above the ceiling.
We actually cheated a little bit and we went down to 4 inches as a minimum, just to gain another inch. Within 3 inches, no matter where you're looking at, there's a lot of really nice movement happening, and I think that's a credit to our design team to be able to fit a pretty dynamic design into such a shallow depth.
The way that those ripples guide you, it also had the added benefit of helping us to control the sound in the space as well.
Providing those air gaps and letting the sound kind of go up above and bounce around really reduces the echo and reverberation into the space.
When it comes to the ceiling baffles, I couldn't be happier with the warmth that they bring that you wouldn't otherwise get. If we're trying to meet a need, we like to have our customers come sit down here, understand what solutions we can offer them, and have a real open conversation.
Remember, the space is supposed to be multifunctional. It's supposed to host events, presentations, press briefings. It needs to be professional, but it needs to show some of that grit. That's where the faceted panels came into play.
Of course, I want to highlight the Geo Wall. It's the wow factor that everybody's jaw drops. The design team was really intent on making sure that it was not only a very beautiful design, but it incorporated Textron Systems' story. We understood that the Geo Wall was going to have a harder feel that really was speaking to our products and things that we do out on the battlefield.
Once we had our initial concept, we hopped on a call with Christian and the design studios team to talk through our ideas. Upon seeing the renderings, Arktura actually mentioned, hey, we could provide the geometric wall panels as well.
I see in the rendering a faceted wall.
Sorry, I'm just nosy. You had some faceted tile.
Are you looking at this image?
Yeah, that's super
If
cool.
you have any ideas, all ears.
We said, can we take a stab at it?
We have a standard product that is a faceted tile. You can kind of see them up there.
So unexpectedly, we were able to work on that.
We were able to show design intent before figuring out key details of how it was going to be built.
They knew conceptually what they wanted, but there was really no design resolution.
We know we want these triangles to come together to create this effect.
We weren't entirely sure how we were going to do it.
We went at it blind, just proving that Arktura could do the solution.
They were able to help us fine-tune some of our Grasshopper scripts and Rhino model to get us closer to where we wanted to be.
After some brainstorming internally,
we insisted on a mock-up of a corner condition.
We were very impressed when we went to go and see the manufacturing and level of detail that went into all the products.
Once they were able to see the corner condition that was being represented,
we had a blast.
It helped really sell the idea to the client.
Helped alleviate a lot of concerns, help everyone understand how it's going to be installed.
We wanted to make sure that everyone really bought into the design before it went full manufacturing.
I'll never forget the first time I stood next to the corner piece of the Geo Wall. I needed photos with it. You know, it made you feel like a celebrity, knowing that it was going to go into our space and really honor Textron Systems.
Everyone was very trusting of us to be able to do it on the first go, which is a great vote of confidence, but we learn a lot through the mock-up process, and it also just solidifies the reality of what this thing will look like.
One of the most important things is to get the owner to approve of small details.
We had exposed riveted fasteners, intentionally designed reveals between the panels, basically creating a system that was tailored to their space.
One of the most important features is really the pop rivets that were used.
It mattered to us what those looked like and that they told a relatively accurate story of the products that we build ourselves.
If you don't think about this up front, you could do an entire project and then realize that a countersunk screw wasn't acceptable. It would have been something to deal with.
One of the obstacles that Arktura helped us to solve on the project was to create a modular pattern of the metal panels as they went through the space.
And we were able to come up with a modular design that was based on a pre-assembled subframing.
So here's some of the frames that are pre-assembled, obviously before powder coating. What our team spends a lot of time doing is basically coming up with these frame systems that make sure that the faceted panels is all the way we want it to. So these frames are really doing a lot of work behind the scenes. These guys here are using the kind of welding area as an assembly stage for all the different frames. They've been actually doing this pretty efficiently, about 10 frames per day. These just came off the mill. These are the panels for the project. The cool thing is that we've got all of the labels for each unique panel labeled here, which are etched in. So that's all going to last through powder coat, which is really important.
The panels are powder coated in burnished bronze. They're held together by a subframing that's been powder coated in jet black matte, so it really hides all of the kind of things that are holding up those panels.
We actually just got some parts back from powder coating. These are getting prepped and ready for a final assembly of the panels that are coming in later today. Here you can see 09 and 1/8" aluminum pieces all assembled together. It's hard to tell from all these parts, but there's a lot of repeated components. The more repetition we can get out of it, the more efficient we'll be. You know, each one of these flat plates is going to have a unique label, and so it's going to have which module it is and what angle or what seam is this going to be used for.
%95 is actually attached at the factory.
Arktura helped us figure out how to tile the pattern through the space seamlessly so that we didn't have too many custom fixtures.
I think we got everything within like 5 modules.
We had to design around doors, around TV openings.
Any tweak from, hey, this screen got 2 inches bigger, our portal's 2 inches bigger, we're this much higher, it just went back and forth. That constant communication was key.
We were able to build in some tolerance with the modular design so that we could accommodate for those things.
They developed the module on their own, something that worked, fit, and still looked like it was faceted and randomized.
The way that they're rotated creates this seemingly unique faceted wall system. The beneficial part of that was being able to reuse some of those modules in multiple locations instead of trying to design a unique part for every single inch of that space.
So we really appreciated that. The last thing we wanted to see was something with a repeat pattern. I think when you walk through the space, you could never even tell where those modules are.
One of the ways that we were able to make this project successful was working with Arktura and the installer on site to have the modules of the panels shipped pre-assembled and then have the on-site team be able to install them really quickly.
We worked together with the general contractor and the installer, and we refined our solution multiple times.
And that really allowed us to control the cost and deliver it on site to meet the tight timeline.
Some level of modularity lend themselves to a lot of work being done in the factory so that when it arrives on site, there's less head scratching and more just getting the work done. If for some reason things aren't going the way we had initially planned, we can pivot, and it's much easier for us to do that here than having to provide support in the field.
We couldn't come in and install 100,000 different pieces.
If we would have sent hundreds of individual triangles to be riveted in the field, it would have taken much more time, and we knew that the window was so tight.
The Geo Wall arrived in many different pieces. You would have sometimes daily deliveries, and every time I saw the boxes, I couldn't help but get excited.
We wanted to see what the next module looked like and the next module.
When those modules arrived on site, they could just be clipped up onto the wall.
We kept these strategically placed triangles detached from the module so they could lift these up onto the wall angle clips, go in with their hands to actually do the fastener.
There was some adjustment within the bracketing so that they could make sure that as these modules were sequentially installed, that all the panel seams were aligning.
And they took the last piece and kind of closed up the opening in the field.
It was a phased install of a custom product, which is very, very difficult to do.
It was incredible to watch the work that the contractors did, making sure that every piece was placed in alignment with the design that HKS and Arktura envisioned. It was like a master class in putting together a custom puzzle. God, that was cool. When you enter the lobby, you're greeted by the video screen, and you look to your left and you see this incredible reception desk.
You've got the ceiling, you've got the wall, but we really wanted that design to carry through.
A little bit of a homage to the actual faceted wall that flows throughout the space.
They came up with a way to install around this really beautiful reception desk and bring their faceted panel on that. It really needed to be viewed from every angle you can imagine. As you walked around it, it had to fit like a glove, and it did.
It's a really interesting dynamic between our dark, hard metal, faceted geometry sitting on the corner of this flat, white marble desk.
And I think it added kind of that like final touch, as Nathan says, it was the chef's kiss.
The ceiling and the wall pair wonderfully together. My favorite question when people come in is, all right, so which one is your favorite? Is it the ceiling or is it the wall? And it's wonderful to see what ends up speaking to people.
What I really appreciate is the contrast between the two elements. One really has the more curvilinear, kind of natural soft feel in the ceiling, which is contrasted with the metal panels on the wall.
HKS did a fantastic job of incorporating our feedback, and I will say there was not much feedback needed.
One thing that our design team really prides itself on is being able to really quickly distill a client's mission and values into a conceptual idea.
They were able to take words and phrases and feelings about what we wanted to see here, and they turned it into a reality.
The Custom Solution Studio team really saved us on the project. Arktura was really able to help us fine-tune the wall paneling and the pattern in the ceiling. There aren't very many manufacturers that could make something like this, so custom, and then work with the project team to make it modular and affordable and successful.
Modular design and construction, I think, is somewhat necessary for some of these more complex projects. The way that we capitalized on the orientation and the rotation of these modules allowed for visual variety, but still kept it within tolerable manufacturing process.
We knew if we could standardize a custom solution, they would be able to find a cost savings from an installation approach. If you have a modular solution, you can come in like a piece of furniture. You can be a lot quicker.
I think it shaved about 3 to 4 weeks off our process.
When it came to Arktura coming out on site, you could tell that there was a lot of time and energy spent on this project and dedication to making sure that the quality was what we were expecting. It was clear that these people who designed and built this were masters of their craft.
Generally, on a project like Textron Systems, we would ideally have 3 to 4 months to go through the design process. The design process was done in less than 2 months.
The renderings to the final product were almost identical.
I can't help but highlight how little changed during that time.
As soon as we were able to get our hands on photos, we were sharing them with everybody. We won the Manufacturers Award for Cisco.
This year's recipient is Textron Systems by Arktura Solutions Studio and HKS Architects.
So we were really proud of that.
I feel very honored to have HKS as a partner among many of our other key suppliers and folks who help support the project.
Everyone was on the same page about how fast this project was moving and how everything needed to be coordinated.
We always tell our clients we can move as quickly as you can approve designs for us.
The client was so receptive to any meeting we needed, even down to flying out to California to kind of take a look at the mock-up. They were really accommodating in that sense.
The team we created and the bond that we forged over 18 months, carrying this project over the hump every single day and have fun while doing it, I now consider that team part of our Textron Systems family.
Textron Systems was fantastic to work with. I think a lot of that regimented process that comes with working with the military, they bring to the table. They knew they had a tight timeline and they were ready to work with us. We
really went through the ringer on this one, and it was a heck of a time. I'll never forget standing at the top of the space for the first time all the ceiling baffles were fully installed. I never thought that architectural details like that could really create such an emotional reaction. There was not a day that went by that wasn't organized chaos, but chaos nonetheless.
There were a few late nights, but I think in general there's a lot of late nights in architecture and design.
I will try not to send any like late night emails being like, are you sure you don't want to look at my script?
I spent many late nights here just wandering down the hall, gathering my thoughts. It certainly allows for reflection. It is a stark reminder of the work that we do here sometimes means other people's lives. This facility really is meant to show that Textron Systems is dedicated to the success of our customers.